Good evening, everybody. Good evening. For our speakers this evening, we are going to use the microphone. For the speakers, we're going to use the microphone because we are recording the speakers this evening so that we can pull together and capture this evening for folks that may not be able to attend and would like to hear the conversation. Yeah, there's going to be tabletop conversation, so we'd invite you to join a table. Thank you so much. And if there's more people that come in, that's okay. We're glad the newspaper's here. The press is here. We love it. Thank you so much. And once again, you know, what's good about this is that we have 4 of the 5 tables full, and we have an extra table in case others show up this evening. Now, the state of the district LCAP conversation, where we were having to bring in more tables, which was a good problem, right? Because we had a lot of folks that were sharing that night. For everybody, just in case you don't know, I'm Todd Cutler. I have the wonderful opportunity and responsibility to be the superintendent of our fine school district. It is an absolute honor to do it. And so I appreciate all of you coming out this evening. We are going to go around and do an introduction. I'll put the mic down. We can just do an informal introduction. But before we do that, just let me talk about why we're here tonight. So it is our goal as a district to engage our community, have two-way conversations, two-way communication, so that it's not just our district putting out information, but that we're also getting information from folks, and we're having conversations, and we're learning with each other, and we're building our relationships, and we're focused on improving our system so that we can truly discover and foster the unique talents and potential of all students, so that we can, and you have a mission statement, cultivate a collaborative, nurturing environment which embraces diversity, promotes equity, and develops confident lifelong learners, resulting in academic excellence, civic responsibility, emotional and physical wellness. I read those to you tonight because really our efforts as a district are to truly focus in on the vision and the mission of our system, the goals that are established, and to truly, truly make a difference for each and every learner in our school district so that they will truly be all that they're supposed to be in their future. And what this creates an amazing school community, and which then makes an amazing city and town to live in. School districts matter. What happens inside of them for the 13 plus years that students are with us, it matters. And so we really are committed to having what we're calling community conversations. And we'll have 3 of them this year. Now, if some will recall, maybe you were or were not in attendance last March, we had the state of the district LCAP. By the way, when we say LCAP, that's the Local Control Accountability Plan conversation. We had that last March. In that time of that conversation, we asked everybody, share with us what you'd like to have deeper conversations on. And we've got a list of that at March meeting, and we are going over those topics. We had our first community conversation towards the end of the year in May. We have this one to start off the year, and we'll have 2 more scheduled. Don't have those dates fully ironed out yet because there's so many moving parts with all that goes on a calendar. So we will get those to you. So let me pause for a minute and let's meet who's in the room. And I'm not going to have that worry about that being on microphone tonight. Again, we'll clip this, but really appreciate the many of you that are here. For those that are going to be watching later, so appreciate the folks in the room, appreciate you watching, and want to make sure you're invited to the future community conversations. With that, I'd ask that when you introduce yourself to stand up, and it's a quiet room, but be loud enough for everybody to hear. I'm not going to make you have to hold the mic. Wonderful. Wonderful to have all of you. I know that I have 4 board members that introduced. I want to say a few things about our board members. You know, it's not easy to go out and of your community, and that's what those folks are that sit up here. We've decided to take on the responsibility to work to make a difference for our school system. And I want to say this, I've done this work for a long time. I've been a superintendent. My first superintendency started in, and this is the opportunity to work with. And you might say, well, the best board committed to what's best for period. And they want children believe in the mission and in the mission, making certain that future of the district, and therefore in yeah, all right, they are committed to this work. And in today's times, when we have districts that are struggling and having internal arguments and fighting and politics that are eating things up, this board has stayed consistent, is working and staying focused on what is most important. And I just want to say that because I don't think boards get enough credit for what they do. And they meet every Thursday, first, second, and fourth Thursday here in this room to talk about the very important work we do, share their thinking, create priorities and focus. So I just want to share that because I don't think that gets enough credit. And I have the opportunity. I feel very fortunate to work for them. So thank you. Now with that, let's jump into this evening. And let me tell you about this evening. This evening was, okay, how do we couple some things together that our members in March wanted to talk about? And so we said, you know what? Oh, let's look at this. Some folks are concerned about how we're maintaining the health and wellness of our students. How are we thinking about their social, emotional wellness? What about nutrition and diet? How are we making sure they're able to be in attendance and be successful to meet the vision and the mission of our organization? So tonight is really all about how do we think about the wellness, social, emotional, physical, the nutrition of our students. And with that said, also get them into school. Because we have had a real problem, and it's not just us. It's across the state, it's across the country, of getting students to be consistently in school since COVID. Our district's attendance last year was 90%. I want you to think about it like this. If we have 90% attendance, if we have 100 students, 10 of them are gone every day. If you add that up over the year, students are missing dramatic amount of time to be able to have their learning happen, to have consistency of learning happen. And it's really concerning to us. How do we make sure that they're healthy and well so they can be in school and learn? So when I say 90% of our attendance for last year, I also talk about it funding wise. It impacts our funding, because just think about it like this. We get paid on ADA. That's average daily attendance. So if you have 90%, so out of every $10, you get $9, or out of every $100, you get $90, and so on and so forth. So ADA dramatically impacts our ability to have the revenue we need to actually continue doing the services we want to do, which much of the services we'll even talk about tonight, we need to make sure are still there so that we can take care of the wellness and the health of our children. So tonight is a community conversation. So let me tell you how that's going to go. Momentarily, I'm going to give you a starter conversation. And you're going to talk as a tabletop. Have a starter conversation, very simple. And you're going to report out. I'm not going to give you a lot of time on that. Then we're going to go a little deeper, and I'm going to ask you a little more complex question. It's not all that complex, but make you have to think about, what is it that we're doing right? What is it that we're doing? What are ideas that you have? We'll do a report out. After that, we're going to have 4 folks join us up here as panelists, talk about who they are, what they do, and actually respond to some of the things that we're talking about. I plan on doing that, by the way. I have 6:42. I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace of 2 minutes, because we started a little bit 2 minutes late. We will be done at 7:30 because all of you have scheduled. So with that, I appreciate everybody being here. Start with this conversation as a tabletop. And that conversation is basically this: what challenges are we facing getting students to school? What challenges do you see we're facing in getting our students to school? I'm only going to give you about 3 to 4 minutes as a table. I'll check in with you. We're going to report out. So everybody do me a favor before you get started. There should be a staff member at every one of your tables. They're going to be your facilitator. They're your facilitator. So I've got a staff member at every table. And then somebody point at somebody really quick and they're the reporter. Go. Oh, God. Wow. Woo. Oh, my gosh. Reporter. So reporter, reporter, your job is to report out when we actually say, hey, what did your table talk about? All right. That's all you're going to do. And then I need a note taker. Point to the person right now. Go. Okay. You got a note taker. All right. So I'm going to give you, I'll check in with you in 3 minutes. The conversation is, and I'll repeat the question. What challenges are we facing getting students to school? Go. Well, thank you for everyone having that conversation, sharing out. You know, it really clearly to me, we're talking about that COVID has had an impact. When we went to distance learning and students got used to being at home, possibly being able to learn from a computer, possibly able to find an excuse why not to go to school, also creating a social emotional challenge, creating that health and wellness that we do worry about, not just for the physical, but the mind and the body, that as it all comes together. Concerned about transportation, concerned about weather, concerned about the walk to transportation, right? We're concerned about the time change and school start times. We're concerned about the traffic, the congestion at schools in the morning. So those are just a quick summary of what I heard from what you all shared. I want to say this. I'm really proud of our district and the efforts we've put forward to work to see what we can do to make things better. You know, when we talk about the social emotional support, we've added counselors. We have elementary counselors where before we didn't have them. Our school psychologists are who wear many hats, do some counseling. We have now wellness centers in 3 of our schools and looking forward to expanding those wellness centers, high school, middle school, and Bijou. We also want to make sure we talk about nutrition, because nutrition is part of the health. And I want to say this, part of the driving force for me, when we don't cancel school, I worry about our students being safe, warm, fed, and able to continue their learning. So I want you to know that when we think about snow, I think about our students need to be nourished. And if we go over a weekend, that sometimes they're really counting on getting to school to eat, to be warm. And so those are things that worry me, especially when I then see them not being there and these challenges that we're considering. We're focused in on how do we meet our nutrition needs of our students. We're focused in on making sure that we consider the health of our students. I know that I've learned that, you know what, the health of our students, the physical health actually was impacted by wearing masks and or being at home and not being exposed to the environments at times, right? So these are all things that we wanted to talk about. In the end, why? Because we want them at school learning and growing and becoming successful young people. Now I share that. Now the next table conversation I'm going to have you do is as we consider how we support our students. And by the way, Teresa Scow, my assistant back here, she's taking notes too. We're capturing everything here because we're listening to you. It's important to us to hear that, okay? So as we consider how we support our students with their overall health and wellness, what are we doing well? You have a staff member at each of your tables and they're pretty versed in what we are doing. What can we do better? What suggestions do you have? These are very important conversations for us. By the way, as we listen out and we end with a panel, they're going to also hear some of the things you're sharing and be able to add to when we bring up the experts. So it's 7 o'clock. I'm only giving you 6 to 7 minutes. I'll check in. If it's not enough, I'll go a little longer, but we're going to just keep moving ourselves forward. So are there any questions for me? Your reporter will be your staff member. You know, I think people get a little anxiety having to report out, so we'll just make them have to do that. All right. All right, 30 seconds, 30 seconds. Hey, staff members, I'm going to have you come up to the seats. Staff members, you're coming to the seats. Coming back in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, can I have our staff members with their notes come up and sit at the seats for me? Come on up. Come on up. You're reporting out. Staff members, you're coming and reporting out. I'm going to have you at the seats because you know what? Why not? Sit right there. Sit right there. You know what? Why? No, you got a seat. You got a seat. Yes, there's seats right there for you. Okay. All right. Can I have everybody's eyes up here for me? There's never enough time. There's never enough time. But reason why I push us because you don't, if you wouldn't want to come back if it was 2 hours every time. I'm just saying. So, okay. So great conversation. I missed it. Okay. But I want you guys to zero in up here because these folks are going to report out what you shared. And your assignment now is to share out, and we're going to go, can you guys be succinct? Okay. Because I'm going to be in jeopardy of being late, and I really am in jeopardy. So I'm going to hand the mic and we're going to give it to Dr. Reeder. And Dr. Reeder is going to share out what we, so it's what we are doing well. And then we're going to go all down the line. And then after Andrea says that, we're going to go to the next question and come down the line, and then we're going to finish. Succinct. That was not boss-like at all, was it? I'm just, okay, here we go. Doctor.
Thanks, Todd. What we're doing well, free breakfast and lunches for all was something that was mentioned. Our wonderful CalFresh partners that help us out and encourage our students to try new things and eat lunch. We also mentioned our wellness centers that Dr. Cutler also mentioned, as well as our elementary counselors. That was what we identified as doing well.
All right, Beth Shepard.
Wellness centers, school psych services, the bus that goes around and helps all the students with their teeth, and nursing, counseling, social emotional screeners, free meals.
All right, Karen Goldberg.
Some overlap. That was really loud. Some overlap with the wellness centers, also with partnerships with other agencies like the Family Resource Center, but also necessitated by the pandemic, these partnerships with Barton and medical professionals that really informed us and that those continue on today.
All right, Andrea Salazar.
Also some overlap, wellness centers, elementary counselors. Another thing is our facility upgrades, whether it was due to a good or bad reason with COVID and the Caldor fire. We did a lot of upgrades to our facilities with MERV 13 filters, air purifiers, and just upgrading the overall air purification. Doing good at teaching anti-bias and bullying at a young age, but feel like we can continue to do good with that. Offering breakfast on top of lunch.
All right, now, Andrea, you're going to share with us, what can we do better?
So what we talked about is providing more bilingual support. One of the challenges that we have is when students take a break during the school year outside of the breaks. And typically the students should be enrolled for independent study. Often the parents don't realize how important it is for them to get the work done. And so somehow communicate and educate the parents how important it is for the students to, if possible, not take the break at that time, understand life happens, but to make sure that the students do that work. And then when we were talking about our table and kind of dating ourselves, but back in the day, there was a lot of threats of if you didn't get the work completed or you truly didn't pass, you were going to be held back in that grade. So maybe looking at some consequences for when work's not done, and not just simply, not saying that we do this, but just not simply passing to the next grade, making sure the student is truly prepared to go up to the next grade. And then obviously working on improving attendance overall.
Okay, all right. Just keep it moving.
Okay. We talked about areas of improvement of really making sure we're seeing wellness as a process, an ongoing process. And we are working towards that, and then just really continuing that. Making sure that things that contribute to wellness can't be wielded as punishments, like denying children recess for misbehavior, making sure that those support things are not taken away as a punishment. And also just that obstacle of students feeling suggestions working towards helping students deal with anxiety that we're bringing to class, both teachers, families, and students.
Okay.
of recommendation that help.
Oh, so we were on what can we do better, but it sounds like they were already providing recommendations. So make sure, go ahead and do both.
Okay, do
Yeah.
do better, or recommendations of healthcare services being provided in the schools. Food service, continue your work with that low sugar, high protein, fiber greens, a healthy and free food. And that was what we really worked on.
We also talked about encouraging students to eat and take the time to eat when they get their breakfasts and lunches. We also talked about peer counseling that I know you've been working on. And another suggestion was perhaps look at having a dietitian on staff.
Okay, so now you have all the, anybody miss a suggestion that you'd want to share that maybe you didn't share? Yep.
So one thing we did talk about is we really given our students earlier access likely to technology. All the students have a Chromebook. However, we feel it's a double-edged sword because it has affected their socialization to a certain degree.
Okay, all right. How about a round of applause for our reporters? Good job. I want to say this because again, there's not ever enough time, but all of that you just shared, we've got 4 board members here that are hearing those things and they're going, how do we think about the decisions we're making here as we hear that? You have 2 associate superintendents and 2 directors of our system and your superintendent hearing what you're sharing and how important it is. And we're capturing it in the notes so we can go back and say, how are we meeting these needs? And how are we getting better with the things we could do better? And what are we doing with the suggestions? So very important. So we're going to go to our final segment this evening. And at this point, I do have 4 people that are going to take these seats. If you'll come on up. You know what, Chris, why don't you hold off for a sec? No, I'm going to give you the mic over here, Chris, but I'm going to have these, I've got. Yes. Yeah, so that's a case by case conversation for each of every student. So there are students that do get maybe do a grade level, depends on a case by case basis for a student. Okay, all right, yes. Yeah. I will tell you, and by the way, I'm gonna get on, make sure I'm on the camera. So the comment was about sports and how it impacts. And like, unfortunately, I've got a call tonight from a parent talking about that there was a reschedule of a sport of an event that's going to impact the ability for students to be in school, which is really difficult and challenging. We've got to think about that. Chris, will you come up and join me for a second? And I apologize, I did not give you a chair. So I want to introduce Chris Proctor. Because Chris, you're such an important partner to our district in working on all of these areas. And I just want to mention, so Chris has been instrumental in our partnership with our Barton team and with other community members. And I want to thank you for that. I want to give you the mic to make a few statements. And then we need to introduce, and so you can give back to me to introductions, or you can keep it and do introductions. I'll do that for you. But I just want to just give you the opportunity to say a few things about this topic and our partnership. And if you'll stay basically right there to there, that's good.
Right. Perfect. Thank you. Surprised I wasn't expecting this. So in trying to think about tonight, I wanted to almost do a quick lesson because my experience started here in Tahoe in 1997. And as a staff physical therapist and a off-campus basketball coach, I realized that a lot of the students in a small population weren't getting some of the basic needs that they needed, you know. And so because I was an off-campus coach, but spending time on campus, a lot of students were coming in to the physical therapy clinic with needs. Then it kind of transitioned over a 10-year period where within that 10 years, we started providing athletic coverage, you know, out on the fields that had maybe the most likelihood of injury. And we also started providing physicals. You know, Tahoe Family of Physicians started it, but we kept expanding it, and we kept kind of peeling back more and more of what these students needed. You know, and then as I joined Barton, we really went from about 50 annual pre-participation physicals to 200. And for our medical providers, it was frustrating because for some students, that was their only interaction with a physician was during physicals for sports. And then you think about that, we put athletic trainers at with Douglas, with South Tahoe, with Whitell. It kept bringing students into a medical model, but only students that played sports. Shifting to the pandemic really was a game changer, because what it did for us as partners was we had to get together in a whole new world and really try to figure some of this stuff out. And we also started to understand, you know, at the same time, that the health and wellness and overall health and wellness was really something that needed support during the pandemic. So we went from this phase of kind of focusing on athletic injuries to managing athletic injuries to getting kids their physical, but then trying to connect them with a doctor, to now really treating the entire student population. And now I'd like to say that now we've shifted, you know, some of you don't know this, but Todd, his team, Dr. Sneeringer, myself, and a few others were meeting weekly on a regular basis during the pandemic, just to try to figure this thing out, relying on Dr. Sneeringer for expertise and then allowing Dr. Cutler to hand that off and pass that on. Now I feel like the shift has now gone from that to now overall behavioral health and wellness, you know. And so we have Beth involved with our behavioral health network. So it's been a great, you know, evolution. And it just struck me today to think about it, that about every 10 years, we seem to get a little bit more smarter and a little bit more responsive to what our students need. And so I think I'll leave it with that.
You know, and yeah, a round of applause for Chris. Thank you so much. He didn't know us as how I wanted to do it, but it's how I wanted to do it. And I just appreciate, I got to get in the camera. I'm sorry. I appreciate that, because that's a spotlight that's really important. Our partnership is so key. Partnerships are what help everybody do better. I once had a boss say, you know what, we can make decisions. We're pretty smart people, right? We're bright and we can make bright decisions, but we're brilliant collectively. And the brilliance is when we partner, when we take the time to work with each other, and that's with everybody. And so thank you for the partnership. Okay, what panel? And we're running out of time, so you take as much time as you need, kind of. Anyway, so the panelists here, by the way, we did have to reschedule, and we had another panelist that was going to talk a little more about the social emotional wellness. But we have great experts up here tonight, and let me introduce them to you. First, our Director of Student Services and Special Education, Beth Shepard, and Beth is in charge of all of those components of our district that really is around mental and emotional health, as well as, you know, student needs in regard to special education. Dr. Rhonda Sneeringer from Barton. Now I want to say this because it's Ariel Rierick from Barton, and is a dietitian. Okay. And from the district, we have Tammy Miller, who's our Director of Food Services. And we're going to start with Tammy. And what I want you to know is, because I think sometimes what we do with food is, by the way, when I say this and I look at our doctor, somebody was telling me recently, you can do all the exercise in the world, but if you're not having a good diet, you're not going to be all that healthy. Right. So, you know, nutrition and diet is what we're going to start with briefly here tonight. All right. You're on.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try and keep it as brief as I can. So I'm really happy to be here tonight. My role as a food service director is to ensure that our students are served meals that align with the regulations of the USDA. Our team consists, my team, of 16 people that are dedicated to feed balanced meals to any student that is hungry. The state of California is currently serving students under the Universal Meals Program, which requires that we must offer both a breakfast and a lunch to all students free of charge. The Lake Tahoe Unified School District also is a Provision 2 district, which means that if universal meals are discontinued within our state, we will continue to offer meals at no charge. Prior to
It's all right.
oh, sorry. Prior to COVID, each school site had a daily salad bar offering, and our goal is to get them back in the upcoming months for the kids to enjoy. Our elementary and middle school sites have a monthly menu that reflects seasonal availability. Our produce is received weekly, and the students are offered a variety of fruits and vegetable options daily. We are currently working with 2 locally owned companies to bring in locally sourced organic fruits and vegetables to offer out on our salad bars. We have been challenged to offer foods that the students will eat and to introduce fruits and vegetables that they may not be familiar with. We have been working with the CalFresh program to introduce new seasonal recipes to entice the elementary students at their monthly taste testings. Beet salad and shaved Brussels sprout salad will be featured in the upcoming months. In order to be reimbursed for the meals that we serve, we work under the Offer versus Serve program, which means we offer choices. The students can choose what they want as long as each meal consists of the correct number of components, which has to include a fruit or a vegetable. That's USDA. That is not our rule. Our high school has been leading our team to offer a hot food bar with a variety of homemade scratch-cooked entrees. We have been the recipient of the Kitchen Infrastructure Funds, which will assist our department with needed equipment to prepare more scratch and speed scratch meals at all sites. Our upcoming menus will be featuring some entrees that were favorites and new items that we will be asking for feedback from our customers. Recently, we have added items to our menu such as chicken Caesar salad, roasted chicken, carnitas tacos, rice bowls, which we have had great reviews. Next month, we will feature taco soup, a chicken parmesan bowl, and macaroni and cheese. The National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program are required to use meal patterns and dietary specifications established by the U.S. Department of Agriculture to develop menus and serve students. We do have requirement. There's some more that we don't have time for probably, but there are requirements for us to have fruits, vegetables, whole grains, a milk, and a meat or a meat alternative. So that's
Tammy, I think that's some incredible information that you provided us. Yeah, a round of applause is going on. Yeah, we'll pass the mic to Ariel. Yeah, and Ariel, you heard what we are focused in as a district, and you're a dietitian, and we'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts in regards to this. And by the way, again, part of the focus this evening is thinking about how we get our students to school and then keep them healthy, right? So Ariel.
Thank you for everything you do. Just how great is it knowing you can send your kids to school here and they're going to get a great meal offered twice a day? That's just incredible. And we couldn't always say that in our country. So that's amazing. So I'm a registered dietitian, and that means that my job is to meet people on an individualized basis to help them reach their health goals. When you live in a community where almost half of our kids are below the poverty line.
That is correct.
That comes with a lot of challenges. No two children have the same challenges with nutrition. No two families have the same challenges with nutrition. So that's where a dietitian can come in and make individualized recommendations to help them reach their goals, whether it's like neurodivergence or whether it's related to
You're fine.
that poverty level and just getting to school. Really, we're just here as a resource for our community, and I would love for us to be more involved.
So wonderful. And we really appreciate you're here this evening and just got to meet you tonight. And we'd love to be able to partner and think about what your knowledge will bring to help us with our students. And yes, we are actually over 50% of our students that do live in poverty. And think about that in regards to getting them fed, and so important to us. Well, okay, we'll pass the mic on to Dr. Rhonda Sneeringer. And I just want to say this. I so thank you for all that you've given to us as a district and the guidance that you've given me as a superintendent. And I know that we've recently had a conversation about, this past experience with what's happened with COVID and how we need to move forward with, and how that is actually impactful to our health. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you.
Yeah. So what does a pediatrician care about school absenteeism? We actually care a lot about it. And the pendulum is absolutely swinging back from stay home if you're sick to go to school if you can participate. We actually have chronic absenteeism, which is defined the same way the district defines it, at 10%. You miss more than 10% of your days. And we've studied it, and educators have studied what happens. And you can actually predict how long someone is going to live based on based on how much schooling that they got. And this is by the age of 25. That you can say, well, you did this much and you got this far. We all know that if you have chronic absenteeism, to have higher social emotional needs, you're going to have obviously higher educational support needs. And all of these things end up being risk factors later for health problems. So I care very much about school attendance for my patients. And we are talking about it as a pediatric community, that California in particular is really struggling. It is not just Lake Tahoe Unified School District, but all of California, partially because we miss so much school and attitudes have changed, sort of as we talked about at our first tabletop. So we're trying to shift the focus on staying home from school when you're at all, to we're trying to prevent the spread of serious illness in the schools, tuberculosis, measles. Try to let that pendulum swing back to where it was before, where we all know parents gave their child with a fever. Yeah, we know that happened 5 years ago. But COVID is, of course, if you know you have COVID, then we don't want you to come to school. There are so many, we are never going to stop the spread of upper respiratory infections ever. And COVID is now joining the list of other respiratory infections, as our healthcare system can now handle that disease better. And so the pendulum will swing back and our kids will be physical well-being, for their longevity, and for their mental.
Wow, I have so many thoughts and comments and questions, but I know we're running tight. But what I hear you saying is that the reality of it is that COVID is going to be around, and that we have to, and then come to live with it. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct.
Okay. And so that maybe that will take on a different approach when we're thinking about absenteeism from school.
Yep, there's things you can do to be responsible.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and pass the mic to Beth Shepard.
And as they're present in school and coming back and working with our nurses, we have one nurse for all of our schools, which is fabulous. We're taking care of their mental health as they're coming back from COVID. And that's one of the things that you shared with us also, is how do we get them all of our students, our teachers back in together. So we have amazing counselors, and we have counselors at the elementary level who provide weekly SEL, social emotional learning lessons to all of the schools, and all of our teachers and students are using that. And it's around all of the relevant things going on. With that, we have our school psychologists. We have our teachers who are learning that social emotional piece, which is really fabulous, because when I was a general education teacher and special education teacher many, many, many moons ago, we didn't have that. So that's a really important thing that you've made sure we also have, and we have. It's exciting also with our wellness centers. And again, those partnerships. And as Chris shared earlier, that Behavioral Health Network and the Community Health Advisory Committee and TASK, the Tahoe Alliance for Safe Kids, all of these partnerships with all of us, there are staff on all of them. We are all working collaboratively to meet the social and emotional mental health with our nurses and with Barton.
You know, you just mentioned TASK, and I know that we have TASK, Teresa's in the room. I just want to say, I think recently we did a challenge day at the high school, which was it's 3 successful days and that TASK provided the funding and the support for those 3 challenge days, which is part of that social emotional
Yes.
wellness. There's so many activities going on in our district that are really focused in on how are we making sure that we're thinking about the whole child, not just the academics. Now, we are at my time frame, yet I don't want to lose out the opportunity if there's some questions from anybody in the audience, or we can simply just have the opportunity for, if I could ask panelists to just stay and be available for some questions too. So I want to be respectful of people's time more than anything else, so that we are past 7:30. So is there any pressing question somebody may want to ask right this moment?
I'm really interested in I'm sorry, I forgot your name, dietitian. Ariel, thank you. You were mentioning differentiated diets for children with different needs. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. Can you?
I wish I had like a A+B=C answer for you for that, but every kid's going to have different challenges. Not throughout the stages of their adolescence, their life, their childhood, they have different needs for different types of food, nutrients. That's the most important time for them to get certain nutrients in their bodies for development, because they're rapidly growing and developing. And it affects your cognitive behavioral things throughout life as well. For me to tell you one individual person's needs, that'd be a little more challenging, but we are a resource, and almost all insurances are covered for children for meeting with a dietitian one-on-one.
It's really, I do that. It's really important information that, that is available with folks' insurance. Thank you so much.
I wish I had like a direct answer, but
Yeah.
unfortunately not how nutrition works.
You know what? And maybe we can do a follow-up conversation on that. Any other really pressing, thank you for being here. Bye.
I'm loud. I don't need that.
Yeah, but I want to capture that.
Oh, okay. Dr. Snaringer, can you tell us, the community, who, how do kids decide if they should be in school or not? What's the formula?
So if you feel well enough to participate in class, then you should be in school. So a cough should not exclude you from school. A runny nose should not exclude you from school. A minor headache might exclude you from school, depending on whether you think you can participate or not. The nurses are being educated. The CDPH just came out with new, much less conservative guidelines. And so the pediatricians and the nurses are all trying to send the same message. So hopefully, that parents will start to hear that new message.
Yes. Oh, ooh.
California Department of Public Health.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Dr. Schneider. Anyone else that's feeling really pressing? Now, because I don't want to hold you up, but I'll also break if someone has a question, wants to come up and approach one panelist. I'd hope that you'd be okay for that. Okay, anyone else? Going once, going twice. I hope that folks that maybe you're going to be watching this later, appreciate you joining in and seeing it. Thank you to our panelists. Let's give them a round of applause. All of you that attended this evening that are doing special things as a parent, a staff member, representing other organizations that really make a difference for our students. Thank you so much. Appreciate the news being here tonight. Thank you so much. Yes. Just to thank you to our board members who take all this information and really think about what is it the priorities of our district, and how we'll focus. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.